When I say the word nuclear, what comes to mind for a lot of us is, Chernobyl and Fukushima and Hiroshima, of course, and 3 Mile Island. We also think about people who are chained to fences, who are trying to get people not to go into their jobs and work in a nuclear facility. They want it to be closed. And these are old ideas, and I want to talk about some new ideas. And who better to talk about these new ideas with than somebody who has really become sort of an influencer to help people understand the power of nuclear energy. And it's really inspiring. I discovered Isabel Bomequi's, I think I'm pronouncing your last name wrong, Isabel, I apologize. Isabel's from Brazil, so it's probably beautifully pronounced. Please correct me when you come on. When I discovered Isabel's videos, I was blown away, not just her TED Talks, but her TikTok videos and her Instagram feeds. She is incredibly entertaining, and she knows that we have to shake it up a bit, and we have to get entertaining, and we have to use all of our creativity to ignite a new conversation so that we can think about nuclear power in a different way. So in the spirit of Swell, which is a really cool place to have conversations with people that think differently, we're going to have a conversation about nuclear power and how it can be leveraged in a different way, in a new way. Not even a new way, but in the perception of a new way, so that people can actually retool their ideas about the danger of fossil fuel versus the danger of nuclear power. I know Isabel says in one of her videos that fossil fuel is so dangerous, but it's boring to watch something so slowly destroy the planet. It's much more exciting to watch a big explosion and get all upset about it. So I'm affected by her perception. It's really been interesting. I cannot wait to do this conversation with everybody. So Isabel, thank you for being here. I don't know how many places you've actually been talking in lately. I know you're busy, and I'm glad you're stopping in on Swell, and hopefully this community is going to be really invigorated by your presence here. What's burning for you right now? What's going on for you right now? Are you engaged with some hopeful conversations that are going to help change policy? Is that the level you want to be at, or are you just really getting to the man on the street? And is that the conversation that really moves you and helps you move the dial forward? Because one to many is very powerful. So if you change one person's mind, there might be many, many people that get affected by that one person. And you do that on and on and on. And all of a sudden your 100,000 followers become people who are really evangelizing this. So what's going on right now with your sense of your influence? How happy are you? How hopeful are you? And what's the temperature reading?
Hi, Deborah. I'm super excited to talk to you. Thank you so much for all the praises. It's very cool to see and hear that someone came across my content and might have changed their mind. I always love hearing about that. So my name is pronounced, if you want to hear the full Brazilian version, Isabelle Bemiki, but I am not going to require you to say that or repeat it. So your last question of what is the most pressing issue for me. When I started what I call ISODOPE, which is like this art project, I guess you could say, I had in mind that I wanted to change general public perception just so that the people who support nuclear power can in public say they support nuclear power without fear of backlash. B, actually change some minds. And C, I think also inspire a whole new generation of professionals that perhaps would have gone into other fields into joining the nuclear space. Might be, from a business side, from a finance side, or just nuclear engineering. And I think, I'm not going to take all the credit, but I think in this last almost 3 years now, which is how long I've been doing this, I've noticed a huge shift in public perception. When I mean public perception, I'm saying if you stop random people in the street and you ask them, what do you think about nuclear power? Most people now, not most people, but more people than before, now would say that they are in favor of it. That is a trend that's happening worldwide, not just in the United States. And it's a fascinating one. I think that can be explained by many different factors. One of them being more people are outspoken about it for whatever reason. The second one is a new interest in energy independence, which was not totally, but in part caused by the war in Ukraine, which just highlights the importance of having a robust energy system in your country. And then there's, of course, the pressing fear of climate change, which is just, nobody's less scared of climate change today than they were 3 years ago. In fact, we're just more scared. And there's this, understanding and wide acceptance that we need to transition from fossil fuels to non-carbon source of power. Nuclear, of course, being a part of that. So I'm still focused on that aspect of changing public perception generally, but I'm also focused on boots on the ground advocacy. I experimented with that in California around Diablo Canyon, and it was so enlightening to me, and it was so rewarding that I'm experimenting more and more with that, and I'm very, very excited for what's to come.
Wow, I so appreciate your focus and tenacity and resolve to commit to this. And I want to understand a little bit about talking points for the layperson, because in the end of the day, we have to be empowered with what we experience in your work and then go out and have some responsible conversations. And then we can send people to some of the work you do, which is like so interesting, especially when you bring things down to such salient, powerful points. I'm always like, wow, that makes so much sense. But I would like to help listeners kind of look at talking points one by one with you over time as you speak with us. So I'm sure you could point to talking points you might have written before for people to understand the comparison between different kinds of energy options. And remember, in your reply, you can put a link in the description, and that link will go out to something if you want us to look at something. But can you give us a talking point, like one talking point that someone can bring to a dinner party, let's say, that's very, very pro-nuclear energy and frames it in a very powerful way? And can you help us with that one talking point and the one that really can start a vigorous conversation, and then maybe we'll go from there. Thank you so much. I'm going to link your website here, by the way, as an illustration about how these links work, so people can actually go to your website during this conversation.
In my opinion, the best argument for nuclear power, if you're at a dinner party, let's say, is that nuclear power is special because out of all the clean energy sources, nuclear is the only one that can be built anywhere and that provides clean electricity all the time, 24/7. So as most people know, with the case with solar panels, the sun is not shining at night, so solar panels can't produce electricity at night. And when the clouds are covering the sun, they're also not producing electricity. The same for wind turbines. When the wind is not blowing, you don't have electricity. And hydropower is the most stable, same with geothermal. Hydropower and geothermal are the most stable sources of renewable energy. However, they're still geographically dependent, meaning you have to be in a place with great hydro potential or geothermal potential. And some examples of that is, Norway has great hydropower potential, and as a matter of fact, Norway is almost entirely powered by hydro. And Iceland is a case of a country with great geothermal potential, and they utilize that energy source a lot. Now, nuclear can be built pretty much anywhere, including there is a nuclear power plant in the desert here in the United States. And nuclear power plants can produce electricity 24/7. So that is, I would say, the biggest advantage of nuclear power. And that is a great talking point. But of course, that opens the door to a lot of other issues and questions and concerns that people have. And I also think that it's very important to understand and communicate the importance of energy, period. If you look at human history, before we started tapping into the energy of the world around us, everything was dependent upon human power, human energy. And then we start burning wood, we start utilizing windmills to grind grains, and then we start tapping into hydropower. Solar panels were actually invented by the end of the 1800s, so it's a slightly older technology than nuclear. And then you have nuclear power being one of the newest sources of energy that we can tap into. But energy is very important for human development. As you can see around the world, the countries that have higher usage and access to energy have also higher qualities of life for their citizens. And it's something that I personally experienced, growing up in Brazil in the 90s. We didn't have, heaters at home or laundry machines or dishwashers. And all of that might sound like our luxury items, but in reality, those things make our lives so much easier and give us back so much time. And I also think that this is not only like an energy inequality issue, it's also a women's issue, because the majority of house chores that, we put our energy into fall upon women. So we know in countries where women don't have access to cooking fuels, they have to walk long distances sometimes to pick up wood, and then they burn that wood, or they burn coal, or in some cases even cow dung. Those things are not only time consuming, but they're also dangerous. There's people are inhaling particulate matter. It harms their lungs. So having access to energy is fundamental to human well-being and to having a high quality of life. So once you understand, how important energy is and where we get our energy from, I think that the case for nuclear power becomes a lot easier.
Isabella, thank you so much for framing this so well. If I just listen even one more time, I think I'll be able to introduce this as a conversation topic and just to see where it goes. But people are limited by their knowledge, and they get their knowledge from what they're exposed to repeatedly, and then it becomes ingrained and it becomes sort of a belief system in a way. And we know we have a lot of belief systems around this, and a lot of them are fear-based. And here you are just celebrating how possible all this is and how much it makes sense. And to that end, I'd love to know, because these are long-tail transformations in some parts of the world. Are there projects that you are looking at now that are giving you encouragement that there's going to be a transformation, and slowly, just like solar took time and wind took time? Are you seeing, is there one place that you can point to and say, wow, I've made headway here, or the group of people have made headway, the government has shifted and changed, and there's traction and there's change, because everyone needs to feel like they're making an impact and a dent. And even if it's a long tail campaign, you need to feel like, okay, we're getting forward here, we're moving forward, so that you can have more people join and be a part of it without feeling like it's something that's going to happen way after their lifetime. And this is your lifetime. So what particular projects are making you feel hopeful today?
One project that gives me a lot of hope about the future of nuclear power is Diablo Canyon in California. Just to remind everyone, that is California's last nuclear power plant. It was highly protested when it was built and right before it opened operations. And it was set to close in 2025. Now, this would be a premature closure because the plant could technically keep operating for another 20 years at least, producing clean electricity for 3 million Californians. So that is obviously a huge amount of clean electricity that we can't afford to lose at this moment. We know, just looking at history, especially in the United States and recently, whenever nuclear power plants are shut down, unfortunately, they're replaced by fossil fuels. And even though every politician that's in power when that closure happens promises that that is not going to be the case, promises that there is some sort of plan to replace that with renewable energy, it is usually replaced by fossil fuels. And there are several reasons for that. One of them being that nuclear power, again, provides that clean electricity 24/7 versus renewables provide electricity some of the time. And the other reason just being that it's easier to replace with fossil fuels. We already have a very robust fossil fuel infrastructure in the country, and people just need their energy. They want to turn on their lights, when they come home. And so historically it's been the case that when a nuclear power plant shuts down, it's replaced by fossil fuels. That's obviously bad, because whatever issues you have with nuclear power, you just cannot argue that fossil fuels are a better alternative. We know that is not a fact. Even if you completely exclude climate change from this equation, air pollution alone is a huge issue. So that decision to close Diablo Canyon has been postponed. So now the plant is closing in 2030. And quite honestly, that's to be determined. And the reason for that reversal in plans is because California is in an energy crisis. If you live in California, you know that every summer you have flax alerts and you're told to not turn on your air conditioning or your appliances at, starting 6, 7 p.m. A reason for that is California is very rich in solar power, and that's usually when the sun is going down. So that amount of electricity from solar is reduced on the grid and completely gone. So that decision has been reverted, which is very, I think, enlightening, and it shows that the opinion about nuclear power is changing, especially in California, which is considered one of the birthplaces of the anti-nuclear movement. People are realizing that, even though they might not agree with nuclear power or don't like it, they understand that it's needed. They understand that it's carbon-free electricity. So that gives me a lot of hope. And then just broadly around the world, there is a lot to be hopeful. Poland, which is a country that relies mainly on coal for electricity production, is now invested in nuclear power. They want to build several nuclear power plants, and they want to get off coal. China is set to build 150 nuclear reactors in the next 15 years, which would make China the biggest nuclear energy country in the world. Countries like France are going back to wanting to build more nuclear power, and same in England. Even the United States this year, we're supposed to open a nuclear power plant, start operations, and this power plant has been in construction for almost a decade. So I think there's a lot of hope. Things are changing. The war in Ukraine has highlighted again the importance of energy independence, and we have several commitments to clean energy, and more governments and people are realizing that we cannot achieve those without nuclear power.
I imagine you trying to keep track of all the movements around, even in this country, where decisions are being made every day, and who's making them and what's influencing their decisions. And to your point, you're watching when something closes, what are they replacing it with? And it's usually fossil fuel. And to have energy independence, we need to get out of that rut and go towards alternative energy. And to your point, if people understood more and agreed more with the baselines of why nuclear power is a better option and a more consistent option, we would have a lot to look forward to. But I'm so appreciative of your tenacity and your passion for this. I think you're so unique, and you're such a treasure because you really light the way for this, because of your ingenuity on how to market yourself and how to create a persona to reinforce the fact that we need to pull out all the stops to get people's attention. And I imagine there's a huge bottleneck in the governments, the local and national conversations going on, where there's less educated people making decisions that are probably a result of being influenced by the wrong kinds of people. So thank you for safeguarding the process by being an activist and by being a teacher to all of us. And thank you for using Swell as a platform. If you want to ever come back and be here and have a confluence of voices that can weigh in on ideas and local and regional actions that we could take. So really looking forward to you here as a Swellcaster, and I'm just so appreciative of your time. Thank you so much, Isabella.
It was a pleasure talking to you, Deborah. Thank you so much for having me, for the questions. And I hope that whoever's listening can spark some interesting conversations and try to learn more. There's a lot of information about nuclear power. We've been using this technology for over 50 years now, so there's quite a lot of information, scientific research. So yeah, get informed on it. I think it's a pretty timely and important topic. And again, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure.